Welcome back to the IHSN Roundtable. We're live at El Rey alongside Kevin Ickers and Rick Keaton. I'm Ben Garrett. And now we bring in our legend of the game. And some folks object to being called a legend, but you take it or take it or leave it. You're our legend of the game.
I played with some legends, but I ain't one of them.
Jeff is legendary. It's not so much a legend. Jeff played at Scott High, played 4 years on the football team.
Jeff Buttram, by the way. Let's let everybody know
Oh,
in
yeah.
case they don't know.
And played for Coach Diggs for those 4 years there. And what I like about Jeff is all the other head coaches in his adult life that he has been on their staffs at both schools, Scott High and Oneida, and has done he's got a specialty, if there is a specialty for a coach, and that appears to be the defensive secondary. He's coached that at both schools. Let's talk about some of the coaches that you've had a chance to work with over the years.
Okay, well, the first one, as far as high school, I was coaching at Fairview, and Tony Lambert gave me a call in 2000, going into the 2008 season, and he asked me if I'd want to come and help him on his staff, and I said, well, I'd be interested in that because I'd always, wanted to do high school. I'd done everything else. I'd done Storm, middle school. Mm-hmm. So I went up there and somehow or another, I thought I'd probably do D-line or O-line or something like that. And he said, well, I like people that played offensive line. He said, he always does that. John Brewster was another, had him as a defensive backs coach. And that's just that's how it all started, was with him. And then we was up there for 2 years. I had a great run up there. 1 year he was the head coach. 1 year John Brewster's head coach. Tony's the defense coordinator. And then Tony went to Scott as the defensive coordinator. And so when he got down there, nobody knew his defense but him. Right. So he was having to scream everybody into position. And so he called me up and asked me if I wanted to come down there. And so me and him and Keith met, and I ended up down there, done the DBs. Stayed down there to 2019. Tony come back up here, and he asked me if I wanted to come, and I said, well, I think I'll just stay for a while. And so I stayed down there to 2019. My stepson, when he finished, I gave it a lot of thought. Thought I was just going to quit.
Right.
And so I kind of retired, and I was probably out of it 3 weeks. Tony called me again. He said, man, I'm needing help with the DBs. So him and Robert, I went back up there with them again. And, of course, Tony left me again. And so I worked with Jimmy a year, and I thought I was going to retire again. And me and Carla, we don't ever get to do nothing. Right. One vacation a year during the dead period. And, football's full-time now in high school. And so we was finally going to get on some vacations and other things. And then Scott High's coach called me, and he said, man, I'm needing help. So I just love kids, and I love football. So I thought I'd just go down there and give it a try. And so that's where we're at. That's where I'm back at.
Jeff, by down there you mean Scott High, and up here you means at Oneida.
Yes.
So you can see the head coaches that he has worked with, the schools, the local schools, both Oneida and Scott High. And it's changed a lot. Football has changed a lot from the time that, I'm going to say, you played. Wing T, ends were next to the tackles. They were not split ends there like that. Defenses were, 6'2", 5'3", 5'4" most of the time. And now, with the multiple offenses and everything just spread out. What a change. Talk about the changes, Ben.
Well, just go back to when I played. I don't even think I was too slow. I'd be too slow to play a receiver now. And there ain't no way I could play offensive lineman like I did back then. I weighed 145 pounds and played guard.
Right.
And now there ain't no room for a 145-pound guard.
Right.
And then too slow to play outside as a receiver or running back. Possibly could play some fullback, but I mean even at 145 pounds, that's
small.
I've told my kids, my boys, I tell the players, I wasn't all that good, but I'd hit you. That's what got me on the field. I wasn't afraid to hit. And matter of fact, I'd never leave the field because I was always afraid somebody's better than me to get in there, and the coach would say, "Why am I playing him anyway?" So, but it's changed. Everything's changed from when I played. I mean, it was just when I played, it was practice Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It was full pads, full board. It was wide open hitting from beginning of practice to the end, and it was 3-hour practices. I mean, you was beat to death. And as times went on, you know, high school has really kind of went the way colleges used to be. You know, on Mondays now, about everybody just comes out here in helmets and shorts, and you run a little bit, and then you go in there and watch film, maybe watch your game or watch the opponents that you're going to play the next week. And then Tuesday, you're full pads. Tuesday's usually, if you're going to do any hitting, a lot of hitting, that's usually the day you're going to do it. Then Wednesday, you're full pads, but you're kind of just thudding up a little bit. And then Thursday shorts. You know, we did Thursday shorts, but at Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, when I played, it was wide open, full board. And when you got to a game, it was easy.
Right. Yeah. One of the reasons I like to think of you as legendary is the people that you've been around in football. Is there anybody we want to tell a story about tonight?
I got a bunch of stories.
I know you do. Not to embarrass him, but just to tell a story that I think people will appreciate.
I'm reluctant to tell this story because I'm afraid one of these kids will be hearing me, and I do not do what I was dumb enough to do. I wasn't smart enough to get out of the rain when I was a kid. But I blame this on Jared Carson. But, of course, they didn't have the kind of film set up now,
Right,
you know, that you can go in there and watch. They had them on reels. And me and a boy I played with named Mike Smith, and we was the two guards. And we was in our last period together, and our teacher would always let us out about 15 minutes early to go down there and get dressed. So one day we went down there, and Jared was down there, and he had that film in there, and he was watching it. And so we walked in there and sat down with him. So what are you doing, Jared? He said, I was just noticing. He said, man, that front line on this kickoff right here, said as soon as the kicker goes at him, they're turning around belling. He said, we could get an onside kick. He said, they've done it in both games we've got. Boy, I had that on my mind. And I played wedge buster right in the middle, right beside the kicker. I thought, if we get ahead in that game, I might just call that. So we got ahead. And I was out there, and old Bill was the kicker, Bill Hall.
Bill Hall.
And we'd huddle up, and Bill would stand there, and he'd look over at Coach Diggs. And Coach Diggs, you know, he's always kicking it deep. I don't know if he ever kicked an onside kick. And he was hollering at Bill, and I said, Bill, Coach Diggs said kick onside kick. And Bill said, he did not. And I said, Bill, I said, I'm telling you, he said kick an onside kick. And Bill looked over there at Coach Diggs, and Coach Diggs is screaming at him, saying, kick it. So Bill said, all right, boys. He said, onside kick. He said, now listen. He said, I'm going to run at that thing like I'm putting it through the end zone. He said, I'm just going to tap it. We get out there, and he kicked that ball, and he just tipped it. And that thing took one bounce, bounced right up into that lineman's hands, and he was standing there, didn't even know what to do with it. And finally, he just dives on the ground, and I thought, man, it hit me. Reality hit me then. I had done something real stupid, and I was fixing to be in bad trouble. It was the only one of 2 times I ever lied to Coach Diggs. Bill was going off the field, and Diggs was screaming at him. I mean, he'd hardly ever got on Bill. That was one time he was ripping him. And I was on defense, so see, I didn't have to go off the field. So after that series, though, they was getting ready to punt. I went off, and Bill went, Jeff, said, tell him. Said, you called that onside kick. And I looked over at Bill, and I said, Bill, I didn't call nothing. I said, you called it. And I'm telling you, Bill, he had it in for me from then on. But I knew this. I was smart enough to know this. He wasn't going to do much to Bill besides chew him out and give him a good tongue lashing. But I knew if I was the one that took the credit for calling that onside kick, I'd been sitting over there on the bench probably from now on.
Yeah, been running every day the following week. I mean,
now Diggs, I'll tell you, all the way up till right there at the end, his rules was never he wouldn't bend them for nobody. And this is another story on Bill.
This is not, by the way, this is not pick on Bill Nye, but Bill has done things that deserve.
He deserves it because he's always, they give him the nickname "Do It All" Bill Hall. They give him the credit for everything. But I'm gonna tell. So he didn't bring his uniform on Friday.
Oh yeah, I remember this one.
And if you didn't bring your uniform, he didn't give you another jersey. If you didn't bring your jersey, you didn't get a jersey. You didn't play, and I don't care who you was. Well, Bill had left his jersey and his pants, and his mom was supposed to bring them out there to him at 2:00. Well, they took off to Knoxville, forgot about it. So she called somebody. They didn't have cell phones then. They ain't no getting a hold of nobody's cell phone. So she calls out to the school and tells them to get Bill. So Bill comes up there and she said, "Bill, we're in Knoxville." Said, I can't get your uniform. And so Bill's in a panic. Well, he knows better than go to Coach Diggs. So he goes to Coach Williams. He says, "Coach, I ain't got my uniform. I don't know what I'm going to do." And Coach Williams knew that Diggs wouldn't let him play. So Coach Williams gives him his keys to his truck. And he says, "Listen, Bill," he said, "you go straight to Paint Rock and you get them uniform." And he said, "you get straight back here." He said, "No pit stops." Well, of all the ways to get to Paint Rock, instead of staying on the highway, Bill decides to go through Mine Rock Road. If you don't know where that's at, that's up beside where Marvin Hewitt used to live.
Back up to Paint Rock.
Crookedest road there is in the county. Well, he goes down there and runs in the ditch. Well, Bill ain't got no sense. He don't know. I mean, the truck is sunk plumb to the pumpkin on the thing. It ain't moving, and he's sitting there forward backwards for 20 or 30 minutes. So he gets out of the truck, and he's seen smoke coming off the tires. Well, here comes, there's a Laxton. He's a farmer up there. He goes and gets the tractor. He said, "You ain't going to get out." He said, "I'll have to pull you." So he goes down there and hooks to him, pulls him. Well, in the meantime, here we all are. We're all getting ready to load up on the bus, and Diggs ain't even noticed that Bill ain't around. And Coach Williams is pacing. I mean, he's a nervous wreck because he's afraid he's going to have to go to Coach and tell him that, Well, all of a sudden, here comes Bill, and that old tire, I'm telling you, it's wobbling when it comes in, and it's still smoking. And Bill gets out of that car, or truck, and he starts crying. He said, "Coach," he said, "I burnt your tire off." Well, what we didn't know, and he didn't even tell us, he told us many years later, 4 or 5 years ago, he told us. He said, the day before, and now you knew back then teachers didn't make no money. Right. He said, the day before, we had just went and put 2 mud grip tires on that thing. And he said, now on a teacher's salary, he said, you had to get ready for the winter. He said, that's so we put them mud grips with them spikes in it. Remember everybody used to do that? Mm-hmm. Well, Bill burnt the right one off. There was nothing left. It was as slick as this table right here. And Teddy said the next day, he went back out there and he went, you remember them tires I put on? He said, yeah. I said, put me another one on just like it. But Coach Diggs never did know no difference. I think I told him 4 or 5 years ago on Moke's porch over there and he just shook his head. He said, I can't believe you just covered that up for him. But, we all knew when Coach Diggs had a rule, that's the way it was. But, when he got a little bit older, it seemed like we all kind of mellow out or ease up a little bit, and he kind of started breaking his own rules, and it kind of ended up coming back to that probably was his demise, at the end right there whenever when they finally ended up having to let him go, But
it sort of, like you said, mellowed a little bit and sort of lost control of the players out there on the field.
Yeah, he did. But I tell you, when he was younger, he was something else. Mm-hmm. He was something else. And, I got to coach with him. I always wanted my boy. I thought, man, I just like for my boy to get to play with him for him one time. So he ended up at Huntsville. And both of them got to play for him all the way through. And I got to help him. And I learned a lot about him. He was different then. We'd sit in there and talk for hours, and he'd just tell me them stories of him being in the military and this and that. It was just awesome to get to know that side of him.
And people, I always thought he was gruff stuff. He was actually, away from football, now out on the football field. Yeah. He was an easy person to talk to, could joke with him and all kinds of things. It's remarkable.
One more story, because everybody's asked me this, and they wanted me to bring this up. They wanted to know about the 100 and 13-3 or whatever it was over Sunbright. Now, this is what he told me. He's back in. The football coach was the girls' basketball coach.
Right. Was hired when they hired a football coach. His other job was a girls' basketball coach, and back then it was 3-on-3 girls basketball.
And he had a loaded team. Had his daughters. Two of his daughters was really good. Had Marilyn. I guess her name was Laxton then. Marilyn King now. Is that right?
That's right. Her sister
and
Jackie.
They were all. I mean, they were loaded, and so Sunbright knew they couldn't beat them. So what they done is they just got up there and froze the ball, started passing it around. Well, they were athletic enough that they got enough steals. I think the score ended up being like 10-7, and Huntsville ended up winning. But
we're talking about the basketball.
Yes,
game.
basketball. And I mean, it made. I don't know why it made coaches so mad. He said it made me so mad I couldn't stand it. And he said when that game was over, he said we were shaking hands. He said, I told that coach, because he was a football coach too down there. He said, when football season comes up, you won't be able to freeze the ball. He said, I can promise you. And so he didn't. And that's where the 100-and-something to what
record-breaking game for Eddie Burge.
For Eddie Burge, sure was.
It may still be. I don't think he is, but he's number 2 on the list maybe in scoring in a game in Tennessee high school history.
Because I know it used to be in the Guinness Book of World Records, but I don't know if it still is or not.
I've got that information. I didn't show it to you the other night, but I've got something that Raymond Thompson prepared for the Scott County News in 1992. It covers Huntsville, Oneida, and Scott High, and all the individual records and stuff like that, the touchdown passes and length and all that stuff that we need to whip out on the show one night. It's a remarkable piece because, like I say, this is 92 and earlier, and when we go over some of this information, people are going to say, who's that? I've never heard of that person. And, I mean, so football's been around since the 30s for Oneida and the 50s for Huntsville and then 71 for Scott High. So a lot of things have happened over the years, and I wish it would really kept up with that better.
Well, Raymond Thompson he may be the only person in Scott County that I know of who is more knowledgeable about high school football than you and Tim Smith. Tim's got all the Oneida stuff. You've got all the Scott High stuff.
Oh, Woody's got it. Woody's
Woody.
the guy. And Leatt, we need to credit both of them.
Leatt's got a lot of stuff.
But Raymond has put in a lot of time researching over the years and compiling those records and statistics, for sure.
And we need to go over them sometime on this program. We really do.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we're just about out of time. You got to stay with us and you're in a little bit unique situation because you're a coach. We started last week and we had Stan Pennington on, and Stan, he likes to talk more than anybody. We made him pick the winners of the game. Now it's not fair really to make you pick the winner of the Scott High game because you're a coach and you're not going to pick against your team. No. But we're going to make you do that. We're going to talk about the games coming up Friday night right after this.